All right, I got 5 o'clock straight up. We will call this meeting of the Community Redevelopment Agency to order. Let the record show it is Monday, October the 26th. And as I said, it's 5 o'clock. Madam Clerk, if I can get you to call the roll, please.
Gary Paytow,
I'm here.
Samuel Hall,
Here.
Jeffrey Jones,
Here.
Francis Pawlowski,
Here.
and Art Graham.
I'm here. Okay, approval of minutes. So we don't have any minutes to approve this time. Downtown Cape. Where's Mark? Mark, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. How are you guys doing?
Very good.
Very good. Got a couple of updates for you. I know we'd been talking about the improvements for the fiber and stuff like that. I did narrow it down. They're hoping to get it. They said within 2 weeks, and that was last week. One of the problems that they've got is when they do the dish on top of City Hall, they have to have the engineer and the install people, which is Siemens. And they've had an issue with the scheduling. The engineer is actually coming from Orlando, and there was a COVID issue that took place. That's why I put them off about 3 weeks. So I did talk with IT today, though, and got an update. So we're hoping in the next couple of weeks that'll be done. And that's for the improvements that you guys had funded for us. Second is, I'm gonna go ahead and break the ice, and I'm gonna throw it out there. Have y'all seen the scooters on First Street?
Yes, we have.
Okay, Bill, I wasn't talking to you. I was already in a meeting with you. We are aware of the scooters. The company that has rented this, that has the scooter rental, is the beach company that's been in business for about 10 years here at the Jack's Beach. Pretty nice guy. We met with him. He actually contacted us, and myself and Sergeant Sharp sat down and talked to him. We were already working with the city manager, with Bill, and with the city attorney to take a look at these things. And to make a long story short, we've been doing some research. We see how they fall in line as far as they're kind of in between a bicycle and a mobility device. And the gentleman that has the rentals at present time has them on the boardwalk just south of Casa Marina. He has rented a storefront there at 6th Avenue North where Honeycomb is, or Delicomb. And he's going to be moving the scooters there. I actually have a meeting in the morning at 9 o'clock. There's a few of us that have a meeting in the morning at 9 o'clock regarding them. So we do know they're out there. They're not supposed to be riding them on the boardwalk, just to some of the older rules and regulations as far as skateboards and bikes on the boardwalk. But there again, we have this is a new product. It's a battery operated. You walk up to it with your phone with an app, you pay for it, and his business plan though is you are supposed to return it back to where you rented it. You can leave it anywhere, and it does have a GPS, but you get billed an additional $20.
Whoa.
Hey, Mark.
Can't hear you.
Can't hear you.
You muted yourself.
You said the $20 and then you went mute.
Yeah, it's my Wi-Fi in here. Let me take my Wi-Fi off. Yeah, can y'all hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, yeah, his business plan is he does want the scooters returned back to the original renting location. And if you don't, you get charged an additional $20. So I think that's working for him. We sat down with him. We talked to him, myself and Sergeant Sharp. He's pretty open. He does know that City Council and CRA and the city as well as a whole is aware of his business idea. And with that being said, he's willing to work with us. He says there is a way he can do a geo fencing on it, so we maybe can block out the boardwalk where they won't work up there. As far as getting them off of the bike lane or out of the road or up on the sidewalk, it's too hard to narrow that down with the geo mapping. So you have to sign I don't know if you guys have actually ridden them or not. But if you have to sign like a 20-something page agreement all that's in there, but all you have to do is click OK. Those people aren't, it's like 20 pages, 18 pages. So we are moving forward with the really just learning, seeing what other cities have done with them, because I've seen them all over the place, and we'll see. They do have lights on them.
Well,
So
Mark,
we are, yeah.
I was going to ask you a question about that because that's the one thing that was my biggest concern. And I haven't found that it's regulated in other cities, but time of day to me would be a big thing because late night, it's going to be chaos.
Well, he's already, we talked to him when we talked to him last week, or maybe 10 days ago. He's already shut it down, I believe at 10 or 11 o'clock PM. He did that voluntarily. However, if you rent it at 11 o'clock and you ride it past 11, it still charges you. It doesn't stop working. So but you have to actually have that rental by the deadline. So those are some of the parameters that we're looking at with the city manager and the city attorney, as to maybe getting with him to put some of those parameters on there.
Cool. Thanks.
Yeah, he had them originally when I first got the call. He had all of them up on the boardwalk, right in front of the hotel. And when you hear 30 scooters, but when you see 30 scooters, what they look like on the boardwalk, I wanted to throw up. It was horrible. He has a total of 98 coming. Yeah.
Just in time for Margaritaville to open.
Yeah.
Francis?
Is there any way that we as a council can limit that? Because if anyone's been in Atlanta, they are a tripping hazard. They are ugly. They are dangerous. There's so many things that I am so against it that I think we need to discuss the parameters, because I thought we've already kind of addressed that but we didn't include scooters obviously in with the skateboards, but they're going to become a nightmare, especially because no one's going to put them back where they belong. I will say I'm happy to hear that he did stop the time frame, and I will say I'm also happy that he is making them return them, and the $20 fee is $20, and I think that will help discourage that. But there are some trashy cities with those, and I think they're going to become a liability for us as a city.
Yeah, and he when he gets the storefront there by Delicombe, we've encouraged him that's really where he needs to move them. I think he, as far as the hotels, he wants them available at the hotels as well, because they can get them from the hotels. They can ride. You're also going to be able to ride from here all the way to, you can ride to Atlantic and Neptune as well. So it's not just our city that's going to be dealing with them.
I think that's fine. And I think other hubs to locate them would be fine. I think there's got to be some serious penalty for them to be trashing up the beach. So I know we've been talking about, the city as a whole has been talking about transportation, other ways of transportation, and that would fall underneath that category. But I just know that every time I go to California or even Atlanta, it's just awful.
They're all over.
I don't know if we're allowed to impose anything. That's kind of where my question is are we able to, we're talking about with the trucks deliveries, are we able to impose some kind of rules upon said business plan, or is that crossing a line?
Well, I think that because, and that's why we're dealing with Mr. Ambrosio with our city, because we want to get at the beginning. This is the first business that's had these. This guy has had this license, or this business license, for almost 10 years. And I will tell you this, we haven't had any issues with him. He's the guy that you can call anywhere on the beach and he can bring you the stuff. He brings it to you, and then when you're done, he comes back and picks it up. Right. As far as our officers and all, we really haven't had any complaints on him. And when he called to meet with us, because we had went hotel to hotel, we were tracking down trying to find out who owned them. And he was on his way back from out of town, I guess from a funeral or something. And he called us immediately and came in. And he really kind of said that he kind of got overwhelmed when the company brought them. They fronted them to him. And you may or may not want to hear this, but the numbers were off the chart the first week of how many that were rented. And the company said, "Hey, we're going to bring you some more." So he has no capital outlay. All he's doing, he picks them up and charges them, does minor repairs, and gets a check once a month. I mean, he doesn't own them. He's under an agreement with them. So, but like I said, we're having our second meeting tomorrow. It'll be a few of us with Bill and some of the others tomorrow. So we are aware of it because it is going to be coming. It's going to be coming up.
Especially if you're talking about hundreds of them. That's just,
Oh, when I
I
saw
mean-
30 of them, I wanted to throw up. I was like, oh,
so,
are
but
you
if you're talking about
kidding me?
100 of them and then you have other people who are going to do the same agreement, we're easily going to be that. And that's all. I mean, so I don't know what the steps are, if there's something, I know Bill will probably tell us too, but after you guys have your meeting, if there's anything that we would need to know, I just humbly ask that you let the CRA know so we can maybe make some steps as well.
I'll definitely
Bill?
keep you updated.
Bill? You're muted, Bill.
Could you recognize Chris Ambrosio? He's got a couple of comments he wants to make, and somebody else had their hand up too. I don't know if you can see the raise hand function.
I can't see the raise hand function. That's why you gotta do this for me. I'm low tech.
Okay, Chris, can you unmute yourself? And there you go.
Hey,
Hey,
Chris.
everyone. Hey, yeah, I had the raise hand function up. Mike's good at using that, but here's the raised hand. So we currently have an ordinance in place that we drafted and the council approved, which was our bikes on sidewalks ordinance. But within that ordinance, we currently have a restriction on micro mobility devices, which is what these little scooters are in terms of how the Florida statutes define them. And that ordinance does prohibit those from being operated on our sidewalks and at the promenade and in any sidewalk area. So we currently have those particular areas regulated and their use is prohibited. But we don't have anything like that with respect to streets or roadways. But I would be hesitant to try to overly regulate the business too much. As Francis was questioning, you know, what can we do and what can't we do? We're still looking into that. As Mark said, this is brand new for us. But I can tell you that we do have an ordinance, at least that's in place, that prohibits their use on sidewalk areas and the promenade area by the seawalk and the bulkhead there. I know it's going to be difficult for Mark and his team to enforce that, as it sounds like these numbers are getting higher and higher, but that is currently that's the current regulation that we have in effect. And it was sort of a secondary effect of our bikes on sidewalks ordinance.
But can we, oh, sorry.
Jeff?
Yeah, I was just going to ask, if we enforce that on those scooters, don't we have to enforce the bikes and the powered skateboards and the skateboards as well, if they're part of the same?
Not necessarily, only if we as a municipality, we have the authority to regulate those, but we would have to have an ordinance in place as city council would deem, you know, and approve it, that would allow us to regulate either of those categories. So as it currently stands, bikes are allowed per Florida statute to be operated on sidewalks. So Jack's Beach has an ordinance in place that allows bikes to be operated on sidewalks, for example. However, they also have the ordinance that's in place that says micromobility devices and motorized scooters, as defined by Florida statutes, are not allowed to be operated on sidewalks.
Well, I was addressing more the boardwalk, because currently our ordinance prohibits bikes and skateboards on the boardwalk.
Right.
But that's not enforced.
That's true. Right. And it's a matter of enforcement, as Mark.
Mark?
Yeah, the only thing I wanted to say about that, and one of the questions that I have, and I was going to bring it up with Chris tomorrow, but where he moved these scooters to is directly north of the Casa Marina, and that's in front of that unpaved lot that they own. And it's when you see it, it really goes just to the west of the actual boardwalk. And my question is, and Chris, we can discuss it tomorrow, but it's okay if that's private, if that's the Casa Marina property and that's where that is, that's fine. But you have to ride them to get up there, or you're going to have to ride it to get off of there. And those are just things that we're going to have to address. And we have been seeing them. I can't tell you that we've had we're not overrun with them. The officers aren't. I mean, we're seeing them. We know they're there, but we're just waiting to kind of see where it goes from here. But when we get more, I think that's going to be the telltale, you know.
Jeff, you still have the floor. Francis?
I just wanted to make sure, so if you guys in your discussions with him, it sounds like he's willing to talk, which is exciting. Will it be, since you guys will have to enforce them, is it going to be something we need to look at as far as what the penalty would be? If after so many warnings to the owner of them or the person who's renting them instead of the actual scooter person renting them? Are we going to be talking about that possibly, like we did with the trucks and the truck drivers?
Was that for me?
Either you or Chris. I mean, I'm assuming we're gonna have to come up with some parameters on how
Yeah.
to.
With the scooters, they're not a vehicle, so they're not tagged, they're not registered. So that would be a situation that comes down to, it would go to the actual individual. However, that we're in a unique situation because it's not listed as a motor vehicle, it's more of the mobility device. And on his regulations, it says that you have to be minimum 18 years old. But you know how many people under 18 have cell phones, and half of them have credit cards and accounts, and they get them. So we have seen people. We've had word that there's been younger people on them as well. So that'll be one thing as far as enforcement we'll have to come up with. We'll have to discuss the options.
Chris?
So we would have two levels of enforcement. One would be Mark's team enforcing against the user operator of the actual device, which would be similar to a moving vehicle type of citation or violation notice. And then, it's going to be difficult for us to have, countless numbers of tourists and visitors to the city that should be, that we would consider them to be aware of the law, which is you can't operate this as the operator on our sidewalks. And I could see Mark's team doing a lot of friendly advising and instructing of these users, guests and tourists of our city. But the second level of enforcement would be enforcement against the business operator, so the owner operator of the business. If the council has approved certain regulations or restrictions with respect to the way that business may operate, and if that business, of course, is not following our rules and our regulations, then we can enforce the business operator. So, again, we're going to have that discussion tomorrow, but I'm seeing two different paths of enforcement that we're going to have to end up following here.
Well, then
we haven't worked it all out yet.
Okay, then I would just like, when you guys are talking to them, I know that in Atlanta, they have on the scooter the basic rules, no sidewalks, no whatever. So hopefully they can install that on them as something as a discussion point for you guys. And they also have, since there's multiple providers of them in that state, right now we only have one, so we know who it belongs to, but they should probably have some kind of thing on that. So if the patrol, maybe this can be, I don't know, Mark, maybe you could say maybe this can be citizens patrol ticketing or whatever, marking, whatever, however that works, I don't know, but maybe that can be where they can then citate.
I think, yeah, I think once he decides if he's going to go with his storefront, and that's where you're going to get them from, I think it will be much easier to make sure these rules are followed. We did talk to him. Right now, if you look at them, all it is a phone number down the front part of the scooter that you're holding on to. And when you do the app, there are some things you go through, and it tells you what the rules are. But there again, it's just going to be up to the person that's getting this scooter out of a bike rack at a hotel to make sure they follow that rule. It's kind of like renting a car. When you rent a car, you have to obey all the rules and laws. But at some point, you have to make sure that the person renting the car is somewhat capable to rent it and to drive it and to follow those rules. But with it being a scooter, it's just, I think it's going to be a learning curve for all of us. I'm excited that they're coming because it might update our city a little bit, and it might be good for the patrons. But as a cop, oh my God, I don't want to see them.
Thank you.
Yeah. Mark, I got a question for you. I've ridden these things in DC and in Indianapolis, and when I did it, you can basically use your Uber app and then just click on it and get on the thing and ride. So how do we stop him from tying into that? Because I think once you do that, you lose all control.
It's a different company. So those are the, oh my gosh, there's an orange one and a green one. When I researched them, those are the main ones that are all over San Francisco, California. They're all over. Those are the ones that are tied with the Uber. This is an independent company out of Orlando. He had seen him at a trade show. He had talked to him. It's a little bit different basis. This is more of the way he explained it to us, and I'm not in the scooter business, but he basically they undercut. It's between him and the supplier and the person that's actually going to be in the city where they're rented. So the commission for him is much higher because with the Uber, there's much more fees that are paid. So that's why they tested it here. The only thing that scares us is that if it's doing as well as what this guy is saying, then what's going to keep the other ones from coming in and pushing out this guy? This guy, supposedly this company is from Orlando. The scooters come from China. They were being held up for a while. Supposedly now they got him. That's why he got all these shipment in at one time. It's just, I don't know. And I've seen them all over as well. I've ridden one. I've ridden them as well. But here it's just a different scenario because we're more compact. And I guess I know it because of the roadways as far as with the people driving and stuff like that. It's especially for the bar crowd that we don't want to see that.
That goes to my next question: is how do you deal with DUIs? Is it just drunk and intoxicated?
I'll call you when we get one. I don't know. I mean, because there is state statute for DUIs on a bicycle, and we have talked about this, but this is a little bit different. Can it be done? Absolutely, I'm sure it can be done, but I don't know if we want to be that first department that does it.
Well, I mean, it may be one of those things where it regulates itself, because if you're that drunk, you may just fall off of it.
Yeah, it makes my stomach hurt.
Any other questions for Mark about these scooters or anything else? Gary Paytow.
Not so much a question as a thought. As we start doing our signage program, does it make sense to implement some signage to prevent the scooters from going on the boardwalk and things to that extent? Because there's no real information that says you can't ride your bicycle or ride a scooter on the boardwalk. I know that that's our ordinance, but we don't have anything that's visible for those out of towners that, you know, are riding their vehicles. So it may make sense to put some kind of signage into our program that will help limit where people are going with the scooters and bikes and so forth.
Was that for me?
It was just
Sure,
a general
why not?
comment. I mean,
Okay.
Sam.
Yes, just on another note, just looking ahead, pretty soon we're going to have the holidays coming up. There's the Deck the Chairs. That is a huge family-friendly event. There's more vehicular traffic and foot traffic. So what do we anticipate there?
Mark, that's for you.
Mark?
Yeah, we've thought about it. We've already got these things in place as far as keeping them out of the Seawalk area. And we briefly talked to this guy to see how far he can actually narrow it down. I'll be honest with you, it's still new for him too. When we talked to him, he'd only had them a couple of weeks. But we do, because at Deck the Chairs, if somebody rides it through there, we've got all those electrical outlets. We've got wiring and stuff like that, as far as with the crowds as well. So we're really going to have to just going to get on it and get in front of it. I don't think we're really going to know what the effect is until it actually starts happening. But we are already, working, to get out in front of it.
All right. Is that done for Downtown Cape? Any other questions, comments, concerns? Mr. Mann, let's move on. Old business.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. Unless any of the agency members have got comments or edits that they'd like to propose to the city attorney on the ordinance that has the downtown delivery park and vehicle regulations, the main thing I wanted to do was to get that in front of you and let you know that we are prepared to take this to city council at I believe it's the next council meeting, Chris? Chris A?
It is,
The third, right?
it is listed for its first reading on November 2nd meeting. I'm checking my board.
So with that, if everybody's read the regulations, if number one, if they got any questions of Chris drafted the regulation and there are 2 comments, just go ahead.
Francis?
I always forget to push that button. So I had a couple questions. There are some typos or maybe misunderstandings you can help me understand. So on page 1 of 7, 1, 2, third paragraph, it says A on First Street North and Second Street North between Beach Boulevard and Avenue. I believe that is supposed to be 7th Avenue, and I think Second Street North is supposed to be removed. Jeff can confirm that, but I believe it's supposed to say A on First Street North and between and 7th Avenue North, and then B should be 2nd Avenue North between Beach and 4th. So the and 2nd Street North should be removed and 6th should be changed to 7th.
I concur.
Okay, so that's what I think on that page. And then I wanted to think there's one more thing. I thought there was one more thing. Let me just double check. I'm going through all 7 pages. I didn't mark the other thing I thought I saw. So that's the only one I marked. Jeff, did you see any others?
Well, I just noted what we had talked about before. I noted that there's been added transport of passengers, and then this more than 15 passengers, and I think that's good. But I know a question that's going to come up is this is not intended to apply to beach buggies. Would that be correct? Because I would think that's not something that we want to.
Right. This wasn't drafted with the intention of beach buggies being regulated. This would be very large commercial trucks.
And I think the 15 seats would do that because I don't think Beach Buggies has a vehicle that big.
I just wanted to confirm that because it's the first time I've seen the passenger thing.
Yeah.
And
Is
then
that
other than those things that Francis pointed out.
I'm gonna
Anybody
ask,
else?
sorry, Mr. Graham. I'm gonna ask Bill to help me along with the parameters that Francis just explained, because I thought we had them, actually, I thought I got them from planning, but Bill and I will work on that tomorrow. We'll get it right.
You've got it right in the ordinance. It's in the preamble. It's inconsistent with the ordinance, and we had talked about deleting that language at our last go through on this. So it just didn't
Okay.
get picked up.
Say that again, please. Yep, can you say that again?
Okay, on the preamble, we had talked about in that whereas A, it wasn't, shouldn't have any reference to Second Street
Right,
North.
no, yes, sir. And I thought that was an internal communication between Chris and I, because I thought I had pointed that out, but I may
The
have.
ordinance is correct on that.
We'll
And
get
then
that.
the ordinance, we talked about extending it to 7th Street North on, or 7th Avenue North on First Street. And the preamble is still to 6th Street North. The ordinance is to 7th, the preamble is to 6th, so they're inconsistent.
Right, so the correction needs to be made on the third whereas clause on page 1. Yeah, we've got that. We can do that for the council reading.
The ordinance was fine as far as the language of the ordinance.
Okay.
Anybody else? Okay, now we don't have to approve this bill. This is just for our
No,
own
sir.
edification, correct?
No, sir, the approval was to get this to council as an ordinance for regulation. So we've done that. I just wanted to show you the fruits of our labor.
All right. Any other comments, Mr. Patow?
Again, similar comment as I just made. I guess once this becomes an ordinance, how do we get the information out to everyone? And that the restrictions are followed, and that do we need signage in some way identifying on these streets that no deliveries during certain times? I'm just curious as to how we're going to, initially implement this.
The initial approach is going to be word of mouth through the police officers. These are regular, I don't want to call them offenders because they're not offending anything yet. Different than the consuming public who may be here one day in 3 years to ride a scooter and not know anything. These are people that, and Mark Evans and I talked about when we were doing with Chris, when we were coming up with the regulation, we think informal word of mouth and police presence and enforcement downtown, they'll get the word fairly quickly. But I don't think this type of message would go into the type of signage related to scooters because it's really more pedestrian oriented, whereas this is more vehicular oriented, but we may find out that we need some signage.
Yeah,
Not
it's
a
just more of
foregone.
a, yeah, it's just more of a question, Bill. I'm just trying to figure out how we get the message out and how we start the initial enforcement in reference to it once it gets approved.
Well, in the map that I included with the ordinance for discussion, Mark and his guys and I as well distribute them to the people who receive goods, and they've extended those flyers out to the delivery truck vehicle. So a lot of people in the industry know about it right now, and they've got that map. I could probably do a better version of the map.
Thank you.
Mark, you've got anything to add to that?
I was just going to add that, yeah, we've already, my people that are down there, they've already went and talked to the businesses that would be affecting it. So they know it's coming. They've already given them all the information. Now, does that mean that if they have a substitute driver or something like that, is it not going to happen? But our first goal, obviously, is just for education of it.
Okay.
I thought I saw Chris wave his hand, but I don't see him up there anymore.
Art,
yes.
I had to tell you, Chris had to go to a council meeting. There's a
Okay.
council briefing tonight, so he had to sign off.
All right. Anything else about this ordinance that's going to council? All right, looks good. Mr. Mann, new business.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. First item of new business. I don't know if everybody knows informally through the grapevine, but on October the 7th, I turned in my resignation from the city. So I'm formally retiring on January the 8th. And there is an ad in multiple locations, which I appreciate Jim and Taylor helping out with, for both my position as well as the CRA program coordinator. So I just didn't want anybody to sneak up and say, well, God, Bill didn't even tell anything about it. So this is the first opportunity I've had to say that to the group. So
I hope it wasn't anything we said.
no, not at all. It's 26 and a half years of, I've got the opportunity to retire. I can spend some time with both my kids before they go off to college. So yes, ma'am.
Francis?
Good for you.
Thank you.
I would like to take this opportunity to express my sincere desire, Bill, that our CRA program manager does not fall underneath that your department you're leaving. I think they should be their own person at the table with the city manager. I know beforehand we were kind of saying, oh, okay, because you've had the history, but if you're not going to be here, I think they need to be their own department, not inside yours, that you're leaving, and whomever's new would be in charge of them, because I think this is a good opportunity to make it very clear that they are their own person reporting to the city manager. I personally have been saying that for a while. I'd like to take this opportunity maybe to hear what Jim has to say about it, but I really do not think it needs to fall underneath the development department.
Right. One thing before
Mr.
Jim
Gilmore.
responds, I don't necessarily disagree with that, but and part of the job description for the director position is that they have CRA experience. So you could be,
Yeah. But they were two separate ones before they were combined into one. And I think this is a prime opportunity to continue to re-separate them out, because there really is no purpose for the CRA to be inside the department as a whole, because originally it was designed to be their own person. So I would strongly encourage this group to support separating it out, especially since there'll be two new people now who should be reporting to the city manager.
Mr. Gilmore.
Well, the first thing I'm going to say, I think that's an important conversation, Francis and everyone, and that needs to be had directly with the city manager to discuss administration and the best way to do it. The second thing that I would say is, with Bill's departure, I'm actually going out there tomorrow to spend the afternoon with him to discuss the initial ways and means. So we begin right now to implementing the internal and external communications plan, as well as to look at development items that are out there, so that in other words, I'm going to pick Bill's brain tomorrow and put all that together, because he's got so much to do as he wraps it up, but we do not want to lose any momentum whatsoever. So we'll be out there working ways and means to assist even more to get all this together before he leaves and before we see who's going to be hired on that. So those are that's what we're going to do, but I also want to share that with you as well. I think it's a valid conversation to have with the city manager to discuss his thoughts on the best way to administer it.
Mr. Jones.
It would seem, and I agree, that it's an important conversation to be had, but if we're out there hiring both positions right now, we need to have that conversation real quick, it would seem. Because that may be an important factor in the evaluation by either candidate.
I have shared that same thought with the administration as well.
I agree. Is Mike on the
Do
phone?
we-
He was
No,
Mike on?
Mike-
He was
Mike's in
earlier.
the council- He's in the council.
Oh, he
briefing.
had to go to the council briefing. Okay.
Busy night.
So, Bill, do we
Maybe-
need to as a group? I mean, I don't have a problem polling as a group to see if everybody's on the same page, so we can speak as one voice, and it's not just Jeff and Francis making this point.
If you would like to do that, I would suggest if you get buy-in from the majority of the agency and they would like you to have a discussion with the city manager and Jim about it, I think that would be the way to do it.
And perhaps after that action, Mr. Chairman, excuse me, then Bill, maybe when I'm out there tomorrow, we can have a chance to talk to Mike about it if he's available. So,
Yeah,
Just-
I'll see.
So right now, the question is, do we want for this person to be more independent and answer directly to the city manager and not to the planning director? Is that the direction that you're looking for? Let me back up. Francis, is that the direction that you're proposing?
I'm proposing it goes back to how it was originally designed, which is, yes, they were their own independent person and they were reporting to the city manager.
Well, the original design was an executive director. So this,
Well,
if
I'll
it's that
rephrase that.
model, this person would still be the initial highest level staff below an executive director.
Yeah.
That's how that job position is right now.
So Art, yes,
Okay.
I would like them to have their own, I would like them to be a person that can hold their own and have a seat at the table.
The only reason why I asked the question, because you may get pushback, because I don't know how many direct support, I don't know how many direct reports the city manager wants, but let's feel this way through. Jeff, what you had to add something?
Yeah, I understand what Francis is saying, and I think there's some merit to it, but I would like, frankly, to see what the city manager's position is administratively, because I'm not, I haven't decided one way or another whether this is important to be independent or if we can make it work within the framework of reporting to the program director or a planning director. But I think it's a discussion that needs to be had before and decided before we get too far down the hiring process.
Well, I guess this question is to Jim or Bill. Should we propose this person answers directly to the city manager, or should we just propose that we want somebody that's more independent? And I guess however he wants that to be. I don't know if he wants an assistant city manager or straight to HR. I mean, I don't know. He may not want another direct report. I'm just looking for feedback from you guys.
That line item on the job description right now does not affect the quality of person we'll get on board administratively and we're still the application period is still open, I think, for another 2 or 3 weeks, but it's a point we'll take up with the city manager. And if he wants to amend the job description, that's fine, but it's something that also can take place administratively during this hiring process.
Jim?
I think we have to have the conversation with the city manager. And I think certainly it's very appropriate for the agency to express through some type of motion what your desired intents are, and it can be one or either way.
Well, then maybe what we should do is, our motion will be, and I can't make the motion, but that this guy is more independent, and I guess we just go back to him on what he thinks that looks like or what that means. Francis?
I'm fine having the discussion with the manager. I think it's important as well, but I think he needs to hear how we feel and what we would like as a person for helping us. So I will make the motion if that works. So I am making a motion for us to amend the job description to have the person report more independently, either directly to the city manager or have, how would I word that? I guess more independent than from the actual department that Bill's part of right now. So I'll make the motion. Do you want me to say it more professional? I can come up with a better wording. I just need to write it down. Art.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that motion.
All right, then Bill, we probably need some help wordsmithing that motion.
Well, actually, I believe that motion and that action is just to get you to talk to the city manager about what the CRA feels about that reporting. And I think that's sufficient. So the motion would just be to amend the CRA program manager, can y'all hear me? CRA program manager job description to have him report directly to the city manager, independent from the planning and development department, if that's what everybody's agreeing to. Or the majority of y'all are agreeing to.
I think we're really wanting to hear what the city manager has to say and why he would not want it that way. So I'm kind of personally feel I would like to know what he thinks, but I would like to make a motion to make it sooner than later, just because I feel like I would like for us to have another meeting in 2 weeks, but the odds of us having it are, I don't know where they stand. So I am willing to make a motion for that and then deal with him saying no. But I mean, I don't want to make a motion. I want to have the city manager here next meeting. I don't want to do that.
This may be semantics, but a motion is more of an official action. I think we just need to be on the same page and want to go the same direction. So if we just poll, everybody's here and everybody's heard the conversation. If we want for Bill and Jim, or Bill or Jim, to go before the city manager with our thoughts, I guess the question I'm asking is, do you want to move forward? Yes. Or do you not want to move forward?
Yeah,
No?
I want to move forward with that discussion. I don't think we need a formal motion to get that discussion and then the feedback. And then once we get the feedback, then we can decide how we want to proceed.
Gary?
I don't think we know enough to make a motion.
That's my point. We're just giving we just want to let him know that we're all on the same page, if that comes out that way. Gary, where are you?
An issue that needs to be discussed.
I've made my comments in the past, and I've pretty much stated that I felt that this person needed to be independent and not tied to the planning and development department. So I would encourage us to go ahead and proceed and have this conversation with the city manager and see what his feelings are. And as Francis said, we're willing to work with him and try to figure out a reasonable way to move forward that benefits all parties.
Sam?
Yes, I'm in agreement with having more information actually before I make a definitive decision. Because if this person is going to report to the city manager, yes, but I think this person needs to have some explicit directives as to whom this person should report to. So I can't make a very informed decision right now until we talk with the city manager to see if this is feasible.
Bill, do you have good enough direction?
Oh yeah, to get either myself and Jim or myself and you and Jim to get a meeting with the city manager this week. Yeah, no problem.
All right. Just wanted to make sure there was consensus on board.
Yep.
Okay. Mr. Mann, resolution 2020-05.
Yes, sir. Resolution 2020-05. This resolution authorizes the appropriation from the South Beach Capital Improvements FY 2020-21 operating budget of $4,106.95 for the purchase and delivery of 2 portable soccer goals for use in South Beach Park, obviously at the multipurpose field. Details are provided for you in the memorandum from the Park and Recreation Director, and Trevor's here tonight. Jason's in a briefing with council to answer any questions you might have. It's a pretty straightforward request.
Francis?
I don't mean to be a pain, and maybe I'm just not seeing it, but I know that we have to do the cheapest quote by code and all that other stuff. But did you guys notice that you guys say you need 2 of them, 2 of them, 2 of them, 2 of them, but the one that you guys are recommending only has 1 in the quote?
It's
Versus
one
the
pair.
other
It's one pair.
Huh?
I requested clarification on that.
Okay, so that is 1 pair versus individual, because like on Gopher, it says you need 2, and on BSN Sport, it says, you know what I mean? So I'm just, so it
It's
is
a really
1
good deal.
pair.
Trevor can back me up, but it's a really good deal because the third quote's for the exact same product from a different vendor, I think, isn't it, Trevor? Unmute.
I disappeared for a minute. I'm sorry. No, that's absolutely right. When you look at the quote, it does look confusing at first. It says one, and then it says soccer goal, $4,100 or, but we did email back for confirmation and they did say, yes, it is for a pair for 2 goals.
Because
Pretty
of the
much there's,
description, it doesn't say pair.
it does. We emailed for the clarification and they did confirm.
All right, as long as that's for 2, because I was sitting going, well, you have 2 here and you have 1 there, and if you take the other and divide it by half, because that didn't say pair. So as long as you guys have confirmation it is for 2, then that was my only concern.
Anybody else with any questions or concerns or comments? Gary Paytow.
Just a understanding, are we going to store these somewhere, or are they just going to sit out on the fields permanently?
We intentionally purchased these goals, or asking to purchase these goals with wheels so they are movable. They will stay permanently out on the multi-purpose field where they can push them out of the way. They're very large. We're not concerned somebody's going to walk off with them, but they will be stored. We did select one that would hold up to the weather. It's made from all aluminum, powder coated with all stainless steel hardware. We feel like it's something that'll last and hold up well out in the elements.
And if there is an issue with them wandering around the field creatively at night, we can have a permanent anchoring place where they can be locked up when they're not in use. That's not a problem.
I'm sorry, Bill, I didn't quite catch all. You have a place where they could be locked up?
No, if we think that's going to be an issue, we can have a hitching post somewhere that's proximate to the field, but out of the way. We can lock them up. Yes, sir. We can make that accommodation if it becomes necessary.
I mean, I appreciate the comments about the quality of the equipment, but knowing what the beaches are like and the corrosion that occurs here, I think you would see some rusting on these very quickly. And having a place to store them when they're not in use, I think would be beneficial.
They are aluminum. They are aluminum and stainless steel. We shouldn't see any rust. Some of the powder coating may flake off. We keep our eyes on them, touch up paint on occasion. I think they will last a long time.
Mr. Jones.
To Gary's comment there, I think you will learn at the beach, if you haven't already, that unless you have something stored in an air-conditioned place, it doesn't matter, it'll rust if it's going to rust.
Sam.
Yes, I'm looking at 2 invoices here. One is from Gopher and one is for BSN Sports. I know there is a bit of a difference between the pricing of these, even though I see that the quantity is 2. So have we decided which vendor we're going to use on that?
Yes, the Spartan Athletic Company did give us the greatest discount at the $4,100.
Okay, I'm clear. Thanks.
Any other questions, comments, or concerns? I will entertain a motion.
I'll motion to approve.
The second motion.
It's been moved and seconded. Madam Clerk, if I can get you to call the roll, please.
Gary Paytow,
Yes.
Samuel Hall,
Yes.
Jeffrey Jones,
Yes.
Francis Pawlowski,
Yes.
and Art Graham.
Yes. By your action, you've approved Resolution 2020-05. Mr. Mann.
Yes, sir. The next 2 items on the agenda are we call it year-end true-up items. The first, and it's one for each district. The first is Resolution 2020-06. This resolution amends the year-end FY 2019-2020 capital improvements budget for the Downtown Community Redevelopment District to appropriate $15,645,479 of unencumbered funds to ongoing vision infrastructure plan, Phase 3B, projects 2 through 5. Project 2 is under construction. 3 through 5 just got let out for design. The design and construction of the dune walkovers and stormwater outfalls extension, that design work is currently underway, but there are remaining funds in the balance at the end of the year. and the implementation of the Dix Heights Plus Partners, art, bike parking, site furnishings, wayfinding signage, and lighting plans, and the pier entryway design. And also downtown Cape support, including monitoring camera system enhancements. And that's still on the list as well as unencumbered because they haven't billed out that dollar amount yet. Staff recommends approval of resolution 2020-06, and the CFO is on board, and AJ is with her as well to answer any questions.
Board members, any comments, questions, or concern about resolution 2020-06? Mr. Hall.
Yeah, so we voting on the bottom line on this for the entire 17 million, because there's 1.67 million that's a roll forward from previous awarded projects. So are we voting on this separately or just one bottom line item?
Is that question Mr. Mann or Ashley?
I can jump in and take that. So as part of the state statutes, we, at the end of every fiscal year, we have to look at the balance of the funds in the trust fund, and we have to appropriate either the full fund balance, or we can choose to pay down debt or return money to the taxing authorities. In this case, the proposed or the projected fund balance for the downtown redevelopment TIF fund is going to be $315,865. So what we're showing you on the roll forward schedule is that the agency has previously appropriated and approved expenditures that remain for projects in the amount of $1,670,000. So of the fund balance, we have to tag the $15,645,479 to future projects. So to answer your question, you're actually appropriating the full fund balance, but Mr. Mann was illustrating that $15,600,000 of it had not yet been assigned to a specific project. But looking at the capital improvement plans and the direction given by the agency, the dollars were allocated as follows in the roll forward appropriation spreadsheet.
Mr. Hall, you still have the floor.
Well, that adds clarity. Okay, that explains it. Thank you.
Francis.
I just had a question in regards to it as well. I know this is not the time that we add our capital improvement projects for 2021 that we would like, because that will be in February. But my question is more along the lines of the $7.5 million that's going to phase 3. I believe, if I remember right from a couple of years ago, it's actually going to cost more than that. Do we have what the estimated true cost of that phases would be? So we know how much we might have going forward for our own capital improvement projects. I ask that because in February, we'll be talking about, this is how much money we could possibly use for another future capital improvement project to have things assigned to. And I feel like the $7 million is not going to cover what was originally proposed for that phase. And I can't find my paperwork. I looked for it.
So yes, you're correct. In the CIP plan right now, the Public Works engineering estimates, and I need to stress that these are engineering estimates at a moment in time, their costing for the projects 3 through 5 are $12 million for construction, and then another $2 to $3 million in design. So the $7.5 million you're seeing on your roll forward, those are funds that we have in the trust fund right now. We'll receive additional revenues each year when we get the TIF fund distributions. So on hand for the $14 million project, we have 7.5.
That's what I was hoping I would hear. So then when we look at this February, when we look at the future capital improvements we want to do or where we want to explore, we need to remember that whatever that revenue is, we still have this obligation that we need to fill. So there's going to be another 5 or 6 million we need to set aside from whatever revenue we have before we talk about our capital improvements in February. I just wanted to make sure I understood that properly and everyone else heard it. Thank you.
Mr. Mann, you're muted.
Sorry, that's a good point. I wanted to add on to what Francis just said, because it's a good point in time. Or if there becomes such a demanding capital need for a project you want to do, then the discussion becomes, well, maybe we phase back a little bit of the down. I'm not suggesting you do that. I'm just saying that's the kind of discussion you have going forward in the next year. It's a good point there, Francis.
Any other comments or questions on Resolution 2020-06? Gary?
Ashley, can you help me understand these numbers just a little bit more? Because when trying to follow through with them, I'm not tracking all of the numbers. The other backup sheet that was given to us calls for capital outlay of $5.228 million roughly. Where does that number come from?
So on the schedule that you're looking at that's labeled Downtown Redevelopment Fund changes in fund balance, the schedule, this one, which is where you referenced the $5.2 million. That's a schedule of what's occurred during this fiscal year. So the number that you referenced, $5,228,186, that's what the trust fund has spent this year on capital improvement projects.
That was what was spent this year.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So that doesn't show up in the other Exhibit A schedule in any way.
It would show up, yes, on the schedule, the Exhibit A in the 1, 2, 3, 4, the fifth column from the left, it says less expenditures. In that column, essentially that's that $6.7 million is allocated across the different projects. So of the $5.2 million that we spent in capital, if you look at project 2, it has a reduction of $4.9 million in expenditures. That 4.9 million is a part of that 5.2 in total capital expenditures.
Okay. What is the difference between the Downtown Vision Plan Phase 3C on the Exhibit A? That's the second row. And then when you go down further, there's a reserve for future projects, which seems to be the same projects. But it's hard to understand the difference between the two.
So the roll forward is organized from the top. It says projects previously awarded or budgeted by the agency. So that is a listing of all the resolutions that have been brought forward to the agency and the remaining funds on those projects. And then when you get about halfway down the page, it says reserve for future projects. Those projects have not yet been before the agency to approve the awards to the construction vendor. And also this year, we have a change in the way that we're budgeting by state statute. Now we are budgeting estimated capital outlay. So part of the budget process, components of these have been presented to the CRA. But this is kind of looking forward beyond just the 1 year expenditure window. This is looking out to maybe a 3-year expenditure window. So when you're asking about the vision plan, I'll have to kind of defer to Mr. Mann on that. That was part of the naming convention. I believe that Public Works and had referenced in the CRA plan.
Right, that came up when the original infrastructure project for out of the downtown vision plan. That's how that nomenclature came up, the phase 3 projects 3 through 5 and all that. But that
Gary, you
was
still have the floor.
Yeah. So we're saying we're needing all of that. Well, there's an adjustment to the funding in the first downtown vision plan statement that we're looking at projected fund balance of 1.170 million for fiscal 2020, but there's going to be another 7 million associated with that same series of projects.
yes, sir.
And we've got funding to cover all of that.
Right.
That's what I'm understanding.
As Ashley said, that overall estimate, I think is in the ballpark of $12 million, isn't it, Ashley? But this is the money that's coming in next year. It doesn't take into account the TIF revenues we're going to get year after next or that following year. Is that right? Did I say that right, Ashley?
Yes, sir. What we're looking at on this schedule is the fund balance currently in the TIF fund. These are monies we've already received and not yet spent. And so we're assigning them to the projects listed on the schedule.
Gary, you still have the floor.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Mr. Jones.
Just to maybe add a point of clarification, or at least as I understand it, the money is reflected in that first description of phase 3C. That's basically what's been spent between 11th and 13th Street and the drainage hookup to the intercoastal. Whereas the ones down below, that's the next phase of the project where they'll go from 4th Street to 11th Street, or 11th Avenue, 4th Avenue, to 11th Avenue.
And the downstream improvements west
Right.
of the central basin. Yes, sir, that's correct.
Any other questions, comments, or concerns to Resolution 2020-06? I'll entertain a motion.
I'll motion to approve.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Madam Clerk, if I can get you to call the roll, please.
Gary Paytow,
Yes.
Samuel Hall,
Yes.
Jeffrey Jones,
Yes.
Francis Pawlowski,
Yes.
and Art Graham.
Yes, by your action, you've approved Resolution 2020-06. Mr. Mann, take me home.
Yes, sir. This is the other of the downtown or the true up amendments for the year-end budget. And this one's for the south end. This is Resolution 2020-07. This resolution amends the year-end FY 19-20 capital improvements budget of the South End Community Redevelopment District to appropriate $10,797,781 of unencumbered funds to improvements to the South Beach Parkway, Marsh Landing Parkway Stormwater Pond. That's the pond that's between Longhorn and Ace Hardware. Projects resulting from the Ocean Terrace Area Drainage Study addressing drainage and roadway improvements, including water and sewer improvements as necessary, and including the first link of our first multi-purpose trail. And the last one is the South Basin Stormwater Outfall Channel improvements, including modifications to and desilting of the Stilling Basin behind the Pier 1 Shopping Center, and desilting and channel stabilization for the outfall channel that leads from that Stilling Basin west to the Intercoastal Waterway, which has never been maintained. So that's a hefty project. Staff recommends approval.
Board members, comments, questions, concerns. Francis?
So I kind of had the same question in regards to line 4 and 5. How much do we still need to generate and put towards those projects to finish them up so we can have a true discussion about what capital improvements we want to do in the south end? Because I personally would like to discuss the security cameras in the south end park area. I see that it's 0 now, and I know that there's a lot that Gary would like to address as well. So I guess my true question at this point, Ashley, is how much more do we need to allocate in the next year's budget to go towards those 2 items?
Well, I feel I can offer you good news here. On the line item 3, the $1 million, that's the current engineer's estimate to complete that work, the full project. And on number 4, the $5,250,000, that's also the current engineer's estimate to complete that full project. And then for line item 5, we are appropriating $4.5 million, but the full cost of doing that project is $5,350,000. So we would have to set aside some additional funds from future tax revenue receipts.
All right, so then that would mean, and thank you, because I've been dying for that kind of answer, and that's where I was getting before when I was a little bit huffy. So I apologize for that, and I'm glad to hear that. So that means to me that since we had this discussion in February, we really should be looking at what we're going to appropriate for the south end, because most of the funds coming in do not need to be given to another project that's on the list. So I personally would like us to discuss the security cameras, and I know there's a list for Gary as well. So I just formally are asking Art that we put aside some serious discussion time before February to find out what those capital improvements are and the priority as the group would want, so that when February comes, we are already prepared for the list of priorities to add to this list for our 2021 budget.
Francis, did you have one other one besides the security cameras? I didn't catch one.
So security cameras is extremely important. I think that the security at the beaches or the park needs to be addressed. They don't even have, they should be fiber optic, and there should be some lighting issues there. So I think that's key. And that was really the only thing I mentioned recently, but there is a long list of stuff that Gary's provided to us, as well as some other things we've talked about, like purchasing property. So we could utilize like purchasing property from the city. So we could do something with that land that's on South Beach Parkway, and actually utilizing our little park with it. So there are things I can add, but I just am right now formally saying, I'm excited to hear that the majority of the money coming next year can be more directed to us as an agency for capital improvement projects. And I would like to formally ask that we have serious discussions as to what those will be. So in February, when we have our new person and we no longer have you, Bill, we can direct that and run with it. That's what I'm trying to get at. I'm done, Art.
Mute yourself.
Jeff, did you have your hand up?
I did not, no.
Gary?
Ashley, I just need some help because in looking at numbers, I've got a number of different things that I'm looking at, and I can't reconcile all of this. There's a capital improvements plan, fiscal year 2021, 2025. Are all of those items in that capital improvements plan identified and allocated in your numbers, or are you anticipating some future funding to take care of things in other fiscal years?
So the schedule that you're looking at, again, this is an appropriation of funds on hand. So the $1 million in the reserve for future projects, that's in the CIP plan, and that's the full project funding according to the current engineer's estimates. And the $5.2 million is identified in our 5-year CIP plan, and that is also the full project funding. The $4.5 million, is identified in our 5-year CIP plan. The full cost of that project using current engineers' estimates is actually going to be $5.3 million. And so we'll have to look to future tax revenues to fund the remainder of that project. But I'll also say that that project looks to a 5-year time horizon. It will not all be completed next year. So there'll be tax revenues in years 1 through 5 in the future that can be used to fund the remainder of this project.
Because when you take a look at the capital improvements plan for 21 to 25, there's a total of $14.3 million worth of projects. And obviously we're not funding any, anywhere near that number at this point in time. So somewhere in the future, additional funding will have to come in. The other thing, I've had conversations, I've had a meeting with Bill and Public Works, and they've presented a list of projects to me that total more over the $19 million number as to possible projects in the South Beach District. So as Francis was just saying, I think we need to have some serious conversation about where we're going and what the funding is going to be for future projects as we move forward. Because it seems like we're giving some dollars away to the taxing entities here, but yet we've still got significant projects to get accomplished that are approved projects within our approved plan for the next 5 years. So I think it would be helpful to sit down at some point in time and budget all of this out over the next years and see what funding shortfalls, if any, we may have.
Okay. Anybody else comments, questions, concerns about Resolution 2020-07? Sam?
Yes, I see that we are partially funding the project and not the entire project. Is that with the anticipation of future revenue to cover that?
It's twofold. Part of it is in anticipation of future revenue coming through. The other part is this is a true up of funds on hand. We get to that last project, all we have left is 4 point whatever of that $5.3 million. If we had it all on hand, we'd fully fund it. This is simply a true up of cash on hand at the end of the year, what we're saying that we know we're going to spend it on next year.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Anyone else? I'll entertain a motion.
A motion to
Well-
approve?
I second the motion.
It's been moved and seconded. Madam Clerk, if I can get you to call the roll, please.
Gary Paytow,
Yes.
Samuel Hall,
Yes.
Jeffrey Jones,
Yes.
Francis Pawlowski,
Yes.
and Art Graham.
Yes, by your actions, you've approved Resolution 2020-07.
Thank you for your.
Okay. Items for discussion.
Actually,
First question I have, I've gotten more than one email. And I'm drawing a blank on the person's name. He's asking about the property that we own, the CRA, that's just south of Sunshine Park. It's at the end of Horn Court. There's like 14 houses back there, and there's one empty lot that's owned by the CRA. Didn't know the will of this committee, if we wanted to sell that lot, hold on to that lot, or what you want to do. I'm not asking for anything right now. I would encourage you all to go out and take a look at that lot and make a determination. I went out there about a week or two ago. Looks like some kid or somebody set up, I don't know if it's a memorial or a playground, but it's got like an old car seat and other things out there. And then the rest is just wooded. So if the four of you would go out there at some point and take a look at it, so next meeting we can talk about if there's anything at all we want to do with it. There's nothing forcing us to do anything with it. But this person has asked more than once. And so I told him I would bring the question up and find out how you felt about it. Mr. Mann.
Just a couple of points to add about that. The agency has already paid to have one dead tree. It was when we had the pine boring beetles come through. It came out of maintenance. It was an $850 appropriation, so it didn't have to come back to the board. But we've already taken one dead pine tree out of there because the neighbor was rightly concerned about it falling. They recently, one of our last big storms, they've had lightning strike that's now taken out 3 more trees. So I'm getting estimates to get those taken out. In this conversation we're going to have with the city manager talking about the program, the CRA program manager and who they're responsible to, I think we could also just introduce into that discussion from his standpoint, what does the city want to do with the Sunshine Court lots? Because I think it's always been the plan that those Sunshine Court lots be sold to people to build houses on. And that was the same with the Horn Court lot. I'm like, well, why don't we just put them all in the same package? And we get interested parties, we can just, however they want to do it, by auction, by what low bid, whatever. But I just drew a blank. Oh, I've already started to name a little tickler list of people that are interested in the Sunshine Court lots. And I've already got at least 3 or 4 people that want to buy that Horn Court lot. So, and I can't, honestly, it's the Horn Court lot, the CRA lot. The Sunshine Court lots are owned by the city. The CRA lot on Horn Court is also, it's owned by y'all. It's a single lot at the end of a fully developed cul-de-sac street. There's no other reasonable purpose for it than to make it a single family home. It's not a good place for a pocket park. It's right next to a regional park. So at some point I would think we would want to dispose of it. But I think since we're going to talk to the city manager, it'd be a good opportunity to broach that subject, say, hey, we may, or if y'all feel the same way, we'd like to consider disposing of that lot. Just my thoughts.
Mr. Jones.
Just looking for a little history. We probably own that lot in that condition for 15 years, longer. Has there ever been any discussion of the purpose for holding it?
No, and actually, I'll tell you how we came to get it is when we were doing land acquisition for, it's one family. It's the, I can't remember their last name. Anyway, one old guard family in the city has owned a lot of scattered lots throughout that whole development, which is now Ocean Cay, Riptide, South Beach Park. Well, when you get their lots, and when Mr. Lynn, my predecessor, was involved with the agency in assembling those properties to be available for development, a lot of times you approach the families, they're like, you either buy all of the lots or none of the lots. And that lot did not fill in with any of our development pro forma. But I think, and this is recollection, I think in that case, the family owned 3 lots. 2 of them were in Sunshine Court. And this one just happened to be down the street. And it's like, hey, you need to either buy all of them or none of them. So we got them all. We got the land assembled for Sunshine Park or South Beach Park. And we simply had that lot as a residual with, I think back then, with the notion that it was going to be eventually let out to the public. That's my recollection.
Francis?
So are we going to discuss this at our next meeting? So you let us go over there, we can decide what we want to do with it or what we would like to discuss with it, including selling it or adding it into what Bill's talking about. We can, as a group, decide that. Is that what you're thinking about?
That is correct. I just want everybody to go out there and have an idea of what I'm talking about, and then we'll get the feedback from Bill Mann's conversation with the city manager. Gary?
I just wanted to concur with Bill. I've been out to that lot on several different occasions, and it's at the end of a developed cul-de-sac and really backs up to other residential in Riptide. Its best purpose is really as a residential piece of property.
All right, I just brought that up. Mr. Gilmore, do you have something?
Yes, I wanted to suggest, and Bill mentioned this at the beginning of the meeting, that perhaps a special meeting in November as opposed to the other time, because I'd like to suggest that at that meeting to be considered for the agenda, Mr. Chairman and members, 2 things. One, we have completed the incentive toolbox, and I think I would like to present that to you and have a discussion about incentives, when to use them and how to use them as it relates to implementing the development program objectives. That's number one. Number 2, I want to build on the last workshop meeting or the special meeting that was held where Francis was talking about what I call the vision plan of the work that Bill Shepherd did, to bring us back around on that so we can start talking about that. And number 2, tie that back in to begin a discussion. And we can't do this all in one meeting, but a series of meetings again, so that we keep the momentum going. What Gary and Francis and you and everyone has been saying about the South Beach plan as well, so that we can get ahead of the curve on each of those issues, because there are, at least I would hope, that we can make some significant policy decisions and directions as we begin the budget process and thinking about amendments for next year's budget. And that's even doing that. And you're right, Francis, start now, if we want to meet in December, and start doing it in January. So we've got the benefit of everyone's ideas on that. And that's another reason. And also tomorrow, when we're out there visiting with Bill, we're going to talk about, and he's going to brief us on lots of things. And we're excited about that, especially as what's going on. This is one piece of business to complete. 2, what's been going on in the development community. What does he know about what's going on in terms of developers coming forward for permits, et cetera? So that's a long way around saying, love to have a meeting, got to talk about the incentive toolbox, best way to use it. Let's look at the vision plan for downtown. At the same time, begin a conversation about South Beach so we don't lose momentum.
Can I interrupt just for just 1 second? That brings me to that's a great segue, Jim, because also, whether you know it or not, Jim's contract is up at the end of this month. And Chandra, if you've got the document, I went ahead, when we had this original discussion with Jim, right when he came on board, part of his potential work would be, depending on what the pace of getting this new program manager hired would be them basically fulfilling that portion of the CRA job support while we're looking to hire that person. So we're under a continuing service. We're piggybacked on a JTA contract with Gilmore Hagan, which does allow for contract extension. And so I asked Jim to give me a scope of services, and it would be the same fee. I think your retainers, I think it's $6,500 a month. But this would be from November 2020 through January 31, 2020. And that dollar amount falls just under the amount that the CRA can take this as a straight appropriation straight contract approval without having to go back to city council. So, and that's kind of why I did it in that 3-month increment. But given what Jim just said, there is work to be done while I'm still here before we get the new program manager on board. And this is the kind of work that they can also be doing in support of my function while I'm here and while we're waiting to get that job position hired. And this was just, I've gotten it for Ashley. We're trying to get a PO, but I didn't want to do this without the CRA's blessing that, yes, we would like to keep Gilmore Hagan on for at least another 3 months.
Mr. Chairman,
Sorry.
Yes, sir.
if I may, and Bill, thank you for that, bringing that up. But one of the important parts that I think is really significant, even to start having the conversation about now to the next meeting, is the implementation of the internal communication process and the external communication process that we started discussing at one of the last meetings. Because again, let's keep it going. And a lot of those things can be done, and we'll be talking about that externally with everything we discussed there, and also the internal communications project, so we get that going and get it on the list and get folks used to within the city and outside the city to know what we're doing. So thank you, Bill, for that. With that, I'm done. This is crazy.
All right, so Bill, do we need to do something now so you can approve this later on this week?
Yes, sir.
So what are we doing? We're just approving the extension of the contract?
Yes, sir. For that time specific period through, I think it's January 31 days in January 31st, 2020.
Board members, it looks like I need a motion.
I'll motion to approve.
I'll
Do
second.
I have a second? We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Mr. Patow?
I guess I would like to see something in the way of scope of services as to what's going to be provided during this period of time. If we're extending the contract, what are the services that we should be anticipating in the next 3-month period?
Harry, can you not see the screen? Can you not see the share screen? I'm sorry.
I can see it. Is that a new scope of services?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Okay, I thought that was the old contract that you were putting up there is what I thought I understood.
Some of the bullet points are continuation of that, of some of the work that will continue going forward at the end of this month. But part of it is also the new information, as he said, internal communications, external communications. Mr. Gilmore's group will get out and start networking with our business community in advance of our program manager coming on board. That way, at least if nothing, it's a series of introductions for them. It gives a softer entry for this new job position in our market. And I can do that with them as long as I'm still here, which I think would be a good, invaluable task.
Gary, you have the floor.
I'm trying to read through the scope of services, so feel free to move on.
All right, if there's no other discussion, Madam Clerk, call the roll.
Sorry, just a moment. We have Gary Patow,
Can you come back to me in just a minute? I'll be.
You're last.
okay, Samuel Hall,
I vote yes.
and Jeffrey Jones,
Yes.
Francis Pavlovsky.
Yes.
Art, do you want me to you now? Sorry.
That's fine. That's fine. I'm a yes.
Okay.
And I'm yes.
Perfect.
By your actions, you've approved the extension of Gilmore Hagan to the end of January 2021. Okay, we brought up the question about the holiday schedule. There's a conflict. I think I said, Bill, did you say the Monday before Thanksgiving was a conflict for you?
Just read my mind, sir. Here it is. The CRA scheduled meeting is 11/23, and Monday of that week, oh, wait a minute, excuse me, is the Monday of that. Yeah, it's 11/23. That's the Monday of Thanksgiving week. I can't tell you factually, I may have a conflict with that week. And in the same vein, fourth Monday is our scheduled meeting. The CRA December meeting is on 11/28, and that's the Monday after a Friday Christmas. So I do recognize the need to have meetings, but I would suggest if it was amenable to y'all's schedules, we could have a special meeting sometime the week, I'm not going for days yet, sometime the week of 11/16/20 and sometime the week of 12/14/20. And if y'all know your plans and we could act on that now, that's great. But if not, I can combat y'all via email to try to schedule up that, the special meetings. And that's all I wanted.
Francis,
So Art, I know in the last meeting, you guys weren't able to be part of the last part of it, but we as a group talked about, and I know that we're in the holiday season, so that it's going to be a little bit more difficult, but at least relatively soon before we do our budgeting, and Jim was alluding to it in his comments. We had talked that if our regular meetings were short, that we would do a meeting 2 weeks out to have specific discussions about what we want in our budgeting for capital improvements in the two different areas, so that we could kind of wrap our hands around what we wanted to do when time came to put those capital improvements on there, to kind of talk about what we wanted to prioritize and what have you, so we can make votes on them prior to. So I didn't know if you had a chance to catch up on that. So I know these next 2 months with the holidays, it's going to be very hard to do that, but I just want to let you know that what Jim was kind of alluding to is we as a group said if our normal meeting, what ran long, we would just plan a meeting 2 weeks later to talk specifically or workshop specifically capital improvement projects for 2021 or 2022.
well, I guess the first question I have is, Mr. Mann, as far as you know, there's no action that we have to take in November right now?
Again, you're reading my mind, sir. I don't have any program projects for approval at this point. If they would be capital fund appropriations, very straightforward. So we could do those at a special meeting. There's nothing wrong with doing the regular business of the CRA at a special meeting. It's just a special meeting because it's not advertised as a regular scheduled meeting. So that's why I propose having a special meeting in November as well as in December and perhaps even in January. January, the city council always has the first council meeting off, but that doesn't mean the CRA as a group can't get together.
Chandra, can I get you to go to a full screen so I can see everybody? Thank you. Well, I'm looking at my calendar right now. What does November 18th look like to everybody? That's a Wednesday.
I'm available.
I'm sorry, Art, what date did you say?
November the 18th, that Wednesday.
Yeah, I'm available.
I'm available.
Sam? Bill?
Oh, I'm always here. I will be
Sam,
here.
you're muted.
Sorry about that. I am available on the 18th after 5 p.m. and starting at 5 p.m. I am, yes.
Now, Bill, is that everybody's available, so I don't have a problem scheduling that meeting. Are we going to have our first in-person meeting on the 18th?
We can do that. I need to check that with the whatever happens with COVID, but yes, sir, I was planning on it and getting back into that in November. So we could do as far as
Is that okay with the rest of the board?
Does anybody have concern with a live meeting?
Well, has the curve been flattened enough whereby we can feel comfortable meeting? We just getting fatigue from lack of meeting in person.
Let me put it to you this way. The CRA, my Board of Adjustment, my Planning Commission have been meeting live for the last 2 months. The City Council is even going to live meetings. The virtual briefing tonight, but council is going live. So yes, sir, you would be following in line with the rest of our agencies. And obviously our city attorney and our fire marshal, they keep us posted on every one of these new edicts that comes out and all the press releases. So if we have to make an adjustment, we will. But that would just be an adjustment, me calling you saying, hey, we're not live, we're going virtual again. But I think it would be a lot more constructive, given what we want to talk about, that we do meet as a group at live. So
Well, then let's plan on a live meeting. If somebody has any concerns, maybe if you feel a little sick, never mind. If you feel a little sick, don't show up. But if you have any concerns, we may be able to sit you off to the side so you just feel comfortable. I mean, because it's all about trying to make everybody feel comfortable during all this craziness. So, Bill, let's just go ahead and schedule our special meeting on the 18th and cancel our regular meeting on the 23rd, is it?
Hold on.
Yeah, 23rd.
Correct.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That would be the 23rd. Cancel 11/20.
Now, do we want to address December as well? Because right now our meeting's supposed to be the Monday following Christmas, which is on a Friday. Do you guys want to move it up to the 21st or you want to move it to the 16th? One is the Monday before and the other one's the Wednesday before that.
12/21.
I'm fine either way.
Well, the only thing that when you get to going back live though, first and third, Trying to think when, I think that may be a council night. It's better if we don't have special meetings on a Monday night, because if it's not a council meeting night, it's a planning commission meeting night. And I don't want to take up that chambers and then have the planning commission or city council waiting to get in there, because it's not going to be a short meeting. I mean, I don't mean
Did
that.
you-
How about December the 16th?
That's a Wednesday, correct?
Yes.
I'm available.
I'm available the 16th.
I'm available.
Jeff?
I'm available.
Gary?
Yes, sir, I am too.
Mr. Mann, I think, Jim, you and Taylor are available? All right, Mr. Mann. We will schedule that meeting on the 16th of December, and we can cancel the meeting on the 28th.
Okay, just to recap, Wednesday, November 18th is live at 5. Wednesday, December 16th is live at 5, and both the November and December scheduled meetings will be canceled. Awesome.
And neither one of these are a workshop. Let's go ahead and put them as a regular meeting. But that doesn't mean that we can't stay afterwards and continue our workshop work.
Sure. And if there are no scheduled items, we'll just advance straight to the workshop.
That's correct. Okay. Any other items for discussion? Francis?
Since we're talking about our future meetings, Bill, with your last day being the first week in January, at what point will you guys let us know how our meetings going forward will be run? Who will be at them until your replacement is found?
Well, first off, January 8th it's a day, but it's just a day. I have already been asked if I would be willing to sign a contract to stay on board for support services in the event that there's a lag in the hiring of either of these positions, which I will do. I'm not going anywhere. I'm just retiring. So, but we haven't had that detailed discussion yet. That's something that I need to discuss with the city. And we're doing that type of discussion about my exit is starting to ramp up fairly heavily. So
All right, thank you.
it's in my mind.
Gary, you had your hand up.
Yes, sir. One thing I'd like to add to our upcoming agendas is a good discussion about how we're going to spend our maintenance dollars. We increased our budgets both for the downtown district as well as the South Beach district, yet nothing was defined as exactly how those dollars should be spent. And I'd like to see a good program put together so that we can hopefully direct the appropriate group or agency, whether it's Public Works or whoever, to really get on top of the maintenance issues that we have in both districts. I think that's been talked about and identified by numerous individuals, and we really need to get our arms around that and show the public that we're getting something done as it relates to that.
Bill, you said that you were going to invite Dave McDonald to our next meeting.
Yes,
Let's
sir.
see if we can have him at that meeting on November 18th.
And we can also get Jason, the Parks Director, because he's involved with the South End. David's all over town on public properties. Parks and Rec is downtown and South End. It's kind of a split of duties. I will do that.
And I got some pictures that I wanted to send to Tandra that she'll have is ready. Yeah, Mr. Jones.
Yes, well, I agree that we don't want to, we got to get going on that stuff and don't want to keep pushing it back. But one of the purposes of putting that money in the budget was so that we'd have the funds for when we have our new person on and we do our walkthroughs and have our conversations with them about getting things done. So if we start doing it piecemeal through the various agencies ahead of time, I'm not sure that's the most productive way to do it, rather than getting our person and getting a solid idea of what we want to do and a good program for it and have them intimately involved in getting it implemented. I'm concerned if we just bring Public Works here, we'll say, oh, spend this money on this little thing, and then someone else over there, Parks and Recreation. I think that money is intended to be part our funds for the new person so that we can get a comprehensive maintenance program going.
Jeff, I think we agree with you. Well, let me phrase it. I agree with you. I think this is just to start the conversation. I want to have Dave McDonald there because specific things that I brought up about, a year ago now, maybe 2 years, that have been addressed, I just want to talk about. And we can have this conversation in front of them. What sort of thing are they looking for from the new guy that we bring on board? And how do we interact with that guy? I don't think there's going to be any firm decisions made. We're just starting the conversation.
Fair enough.
Gary, you had your hand up?
Yeah, I
Phil's
pretty much
trying to
echo
say
what you just said. The intent is not to define exactly what needs to be done just yet. It's to get a program put together. What does Public Works do in reference to the maintenance? What does Parks and Recreation do? What do we need to do to hire out services and things like that? By the time we get through with this discussion, I think the PM will be on board and will be able to help move the appropriate projects forward. So I think the timing is right for this, but unless we have a plan together, it's going to be another year before we get anything done.
AJ?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. One of the things to answer Mr. Paytow's question, a good example of kind of like what parks will do, they'll manage that tree contractor that the board agreed to have come out there and do tree trimming in the downtown area twice a year, which was part of that enhanced level of service. Public Works is responsible for oversight of the contractor that does the pressure washing you see downtown, as part of the enhanced paver maintenance program. So it's enhanced maintenance programs like that. It kind of sounds like that's kind of the realm that y'all are going to be looking to maybe expand upon, especially as you get that new CRA program manager on board. But I wanted to answer those questions specifically Mr. Paytow brought up.
Gary, you still have the floor.
Yeah, just to further that, it's not just looking at those items. It's also looking at all of the bollards that need to be replaced downtown, the concrete that's been broken up around the turnabouts. Even the logo in Latham Park is falling apart. All the tiles are coming out of it. There's a series of things, and I'm not sure that anybody's specifically looking at those items. Do we need to hire somebody outside of Public Works, Parks and Rec that can get that work done and make the city look like it needs to?
Well, guys, these are all conversations we're going to have at our next meeting. Francis?
I was just going to say the same thing based off what AJ was saying and what Jeff was saying. It's my understanding that the person we're hiring, we are giving them stuff to get done, and it's their job to understand where to go and get it done. So we're not directing where they go. We say, we want this done. Here's our list, and we give it to them. I think it's a good thing for them to have a list from us so that they can then be basically dropped into it and they can see how well they can multitask and manage. So I do agree with Jeff that was the intention. We create the list, give it to them, and they need to run, and they can talk to the masses that be and where to go. So, but we can talk about that further, but I just wanted to reiterate that I agree with Jeff in regards to how I think that should go.
And this goes right back into the checklist that Gilmore Hagan had as far as internal communication, because we get to talk to those guys about how they want to be talked to and the best way to get information to them. Anybody else about our next meeting? Any other items for discussion? Mr. Mann, do we have anybody courtesy of Florida visitors? You're
No,
muted.
sir.
Not to my knowledge. I think Chandra just confirmed we do not.
Correct.
Okay.
Well, I'm retiring. I'm old.
If there's nothing other for the good of the order, we're adjourned. Everybody have a safe night, and I will see you guys in, I guess, 3 weeks.
Yes,
About
sir.
3 weeks.
Thank
Okay.
y'all.
To all, have a good evening.
Thanks, Chandra.
Right.
Good night.